Hey, Brendan here. Welcome to the channel and thanks for tuning in. Got a great show for you here today. We're going to talk about the 2025 quarterback class, right? Jason DiRienzo and I, we are going to give you our top five at the position, and we've got a bunch of burning questions. How does this class compare to 2024, 2023? Who might return to school? How does it compare to the 2026 class, giving you a glimpse into the future? So again, you play Dynasty and Fantasy, and you're looking for a YouTube channel out there that's going to go in-depth in future rookie classes. Hit that subscribe button. Visit the website below that you see if you want access to Jason and I. And our big boards, not just for 2025, but 2026 and 2027. Not much out there as far as giving you an early look at the future draft classes. Let's get to the show. So, Jason, I want to talk about, the QB 2025 class, right? And,
Right.
Basically I figured let's talk about our top five players that we currently have right now. It is the end of October. As anyone knows, we're going to be putting this on YouTube. So I just at least wanted to put, a date reference out there as well. So let's do this first. Let's go over our top five each of the position, maybe six if you have something more there,
Okay.
tell me who your top five are right now as you see it if we were drafting next week in the NFL draft.
All right. Yeah, I'll start with my top guy, and this changed over the last 3 weeks. It was Jalen Milroe. After that Georgia game, it was hard not to have him as QB1. He looked phenomenal, and there's some decision making that I'm a little concerned about that I've seen over the last couple of weeks. Not that he's perfect or anything like that, but I did make a change, and I have Cam Ward as my QB1 right now. To me, everything he's doing, and I know he's got a lot of time in the pocket, but I'm not going to knock him because they're giving him so much time in the pocket. He's making good decisions. He's making some NFL throws. He's got the legs that he can extend plays with. And I think, having a player that went from one school and was successful into a program that's been dying for a savior at quarterback, and he just comes in and lights it up the way that he is and elevates the entire program in 1.5 years already. Yeah, Cam Ward, I feel really good about. I put Jalen Milroe as my QB2. I have Shedeur Sanders as my QB3. Drew Aller, who's been playing phenomenal, I think, this year and really taking a step in his development, is my QB4. And I have Quentin Ewers as my QB5.
Okay, I like it. Mine are very similar. I've got Cam Ward number one. I got Sanders number two. He's just getting too much buzz right now.
Yeah.
And what I've seen, I think he's a good distributor of the ball. I think he's going to be a safer prospect in the NFL than Jalen Milroe, even though he brings those legs to the table that Shedeur Sanders surprisingly really doesn't do much, in that yak department, right? Not yards after catch, but the rushing ability that we love for our fantasy and dynasty rosters. I got Jalen Milroe still number three, and I agree with you. That Georgia game really inspired me, and I liked him in the offseason, thinking that with the new coaching system there that he was going to improve, and he certainly has. But he just is inconsistent with that ball placement, and that's something that still is an issue. I got Drew Aller as well, and I got Carson Beck with Quinn Ewers there afterward. I'm sure you probably got Carson Beck, after that.
Yeah, I got Beck. Yeah, I got Beck right after at 6, and then Jackson Dart at 7.
Yeah, so on our big boards, these are our big boards, on the Notion, and I got Jackson Dart, and it'll be interesting to see, how it all pans out. But that's where we are. So we got some burning questions that we'll call it, right? Let's talk about, the one question we always get on the Slack chat is, how does this class compare to the 2024 class, and how does it compare to the 2023 class, right? So I'll just kind of kick it off. And it'll be interesting. We should have a discussion of all of these players, okay? Because we know, the three that were, last year, right? The Williams, we got Daniels, we got Drake May, right? The top three. Right. Do you see any of the quarterbacks in this particular 2025 draft? Would they wedge in any of those three, or all these quarterbacks clearly a step below or a tier below those three from this past season?
Honestly, from what I've seen with Drake May's debut, like he's looking pretty good. I don't think so. I think those top three are pretty, they belong in that top tier, and I can understand why they were drafted the way they were. As much as I like Cam Ward and Jalen Milroe, like I have a lot of question marks around these guys, even though they're playing really well. I didn't have as many questions with last year's class as I do right now, and we're going into week 10. And I'm still I still have questions, which is why burning questions is the perfect name for this. I don't think so. I don't think they would fall into that top tier for me.
Yeah, I don't either. I think they would be a tier below. So, question, let's
Yeah.
go back to the 2023 class, right? Because we
Okay.
had the Bryce Young,
Right.
CJ Strouds,
Right.
the Anthony Richardson. Looks like the wheels might be coming off. Bryce Young and Richardson right now, or at least they're going
Yeah.
into their sophomore seasons. They are not excelling. I mean, even CJ Stroud wouldn't call it a sophomore slump, but he certainly has not been as productive as he was his rookie
Right.
season. I think those defensive coordinators might be figuring out how to scheme against him. These guys, the top three, we got Ward, Sanders, Milroe, even Aller. Where does CJ Stroud? I mean, Bryce Young, I think, and Richardson, I think probably. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, I would have to think our top maybe two, Ward and Sanders. Would you take over Bryce Young and Richardson right now? Or are you still in the camp?
I would honestly, right now, I mean,
Mhm.
Jalen Milroe, I'd be taking him over Anthony Richardson for sure.
Mhm.
That was always a head scratching,
Yeah,
pick for
I
me
agree.
anyway.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, I think all three of those guys, besides, it would fall into that same tier as CJ Stroud. I mean, Stroud had a phenomenal,
yeah, he did.
rookie campaign. It was going to be so hard for him to replicate that. So I'm not real. It's been a tough season for him, but he still looks really, really good.
Yeah,
I would say that those three would fall in that same category with CJ Stroud. I mean, at this point, Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson, I mean, I think it's safe to say that they're looking like they're busts. So
yeah,
I can't really put those guys in those categories right now.
yeah. It's interesting. I don't really think that you can determine the true value of a quarterback until year 3, right? So
I
I
agree
know
with that.
like
Yeah.
right now everyone's into Jaden Daniels. I'm seeing like QB3 and all of Dynasty, and I'm like, whoa, that's I know he's playing well right now,
Yeah,
but
he's playing good. Yeah.
defensive coordinators are going to scheme him. They're going to figure out what he does well and be and not do so well. So
Right.
so probably a lot of people are listening, watching, or asking, well, where's Nussmeyer, right, in this conversation? And
Mm.
you and I, my question to you is, will Nussmeyer and Aller, do you think that they, go back to college for their senior years?
A part of me thinks that Penn State's going to try to lure Aller back, but
Mhm.
he's making such a tremendous leap in his development this year. Because I mean, this time last year, I was questioning whether he was even going to be an NFL prospect the way he was playing. But Penn State has done a really good job of utilizing and maximizing the running backs, elevating the receivers, and I think a lot of that has the confidence and development of Drew Aller. Um, I don't think I think Drew Aller would be the one to come out. Nussmeier needs to go back. I mean, this
I
is his
agree.
first year, and I'm a Nussmeier truther. I love the
Yeah.
kid. I was hyping him up before the season, but I was hyping him up because I figured this was going to happen. He'd be the starter and he would do really well this year, and that's what I expected. But to go into the NFL, you got to process faster and watching. I mean, there were a lot of tip passes and stuff that led to
Mhm.
interceptions, but he's making erratic decisions. I mean, there was one pass in this previous game. He literally threw it 3 yards right to the defender. Like, you can't do things like that. So he needs to get more comfortable under pressure in the pocket, and that's going to take another year.
Yeah, I think it's premature. I mean, I don't know how an NFL franchise, as good as he looks, all right, we got to
Mhm.
understand it's a limited sample. I mean, this is a kid's
Right.
first starting season. I mean, to draft somebody in the first round of the NFL draft with 1 year of college, a full season of production, I think he comes back. I'm going to disagree with you on Laura. I think he comes back. I
You think
think
he does?
I
Okay.
do. I think that there's an opportunity if they, they're ranked number 3 or 4 right now in the nation. If they just come up just short, we've seen a lot of players in the
That I can
past
see. Yeah.
come
Yeah.
back and been like, hey, maybe Singleton comes back, right? Maybe
Right.
maybe Katron Allen comes back and they all get together and say, come on, let's do this. Or our team's better this year. Let's go. So another question for
Yeah.
you.
What you got?
Will Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers surprise and return? They both have another year of eligibility. I mean, in fact, Carson Beck has 2 years of eligibility because he was redshirted with the COVID
Hmm.
year. I did some research on that. I had Jalen Milroe in this question, but I think he's going to go. But let me just pose it all three. Will Jalen
Yeah.
Milroe, Carson Beck, or Quinn Ewers, do you think any of those guys surprise and return if, in fact, they don't get the draft capital, report, so to say, or whatever these kids get, being a first round draft pick to try and elevate their stock? We've seen it with Bo Nix, right? We've seen
Right.
it with Penix. We've seen it Jaden Daniels went back to LSU last year. People were thinking maybe he could be a flyer. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think of those guys. I think Milroe would probably come out.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if he goes to the NFL draft. I think Beck and Ewers would probably stay. I mean, there's Ewers has taken a nice step too, but
Yeah.
he's still making some throws that he made last year where I'm questioning, like, what did you see there? And obviously, I mean, Beck is kind of an easy one at this point with all the interceptions and, in big time games. And that's actually the stage that is going to help him with this development with Beck, is the fact that he's playing in some premier games, but the way he plays in those premier games, that's as close to the NFL as you get. You can't throw interceptions like that and think you're going to help your team win. Like, you got to do a little bit better. You got to be a little bit cleaner. He can make some incredible throws, but his decisions are kind of masking the good that he's doing. I think Beck definitely returns.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, going back to Alar, he hurt his knee this week and he plays Ohio State this week, right?
He did hurt his knee. That's right.
Yeah, he does. And he plays at home up in Happy Valley. And I know that a lot of, I'm sure, draft guys were like, okay, Drew, and Franklin, the coach too, this is their moment, man. You got to go beat, you haven't beat Ohio State yet. So go get it.
Do you think like Jaden Daniels was not expected to play this weekend, but it was such a big game, him versus Caleb Williams, that I was so surprised that he played. I almost feel like they want to make sure Drew Aller is going to be out there for that Ohio State
I'm
game.
sure he's getting a massage on that knee like every day.
Every day.
Or whatever
they're
they
putting
do
him in a bubble for a week.
Yeah, or whatever they do for broken knees. All right. So
the backup played pretty, Pebula or whatever. He did decent, but it's Ohio State. Like, you got to beat them.
No. You got to put your top dog out there, baby.
Right. Exactly.
So do you think Warden Sanders, assuming they were the top two come the NFL draft, do you think that they're top 5 draft selections in the draft next year?
Well, as I'm looking at that draft order, I gotta think so. I mean,
I think so too.
We got Carolina, Tennessee, and the Jets are in the top 5 right now. Yeah, they're going to be going.
And the whispers in the NFL draft community is that this isn't really a robust class with not, what's that when you get a key player with like
a franchise QB? You mean?
Just a generational player. There's no
there's dominant not at all. No,
I'm just saying of all positions that
wow,
just lacking star power. So it's a lot of above average players, but no.
If Travis Hunter comes out, that's going to change that.
Yeah, well, that could be. All right. So let's talk about just going back to these players when they do. Looking at our 2026 big boards, Jason.
Yeah,
it's the 2026 quarterback class, and we're going to take a sneak peek into the future. And we talked about Nussmeier coming back, we talked about Alar coming back. I mean, they might look at the landscape for 2026, and it is looking not very good.
Not good at all.
I mean, I got Nussmeier as my QB1 for 2026, assuming he continues to progress, and next year he progresses. But Arch Manning is kind of on our big board, right?
Yeah,
I think he is probably not ready to come out. He's not starting yet, so I don't see. Maybe he comes out in 2026. We got Nico from Tennessee. He's going to be a junior. So we got Jackson Arnold. We got Lenore Sellers, Miller Moss, Riley Leonard. We got some other guys in 2026. So
what might help this class is if somebody stays and that comes out. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's the only thing that's kind of going to. I mean, Arch, I still feel good about. I mean, he would probably end up being my QB1 with everything I've seen. I mean, he needs more playing time and experience to shore up some of those mistakes that he made this year. But I think you get a full season, you get that chemistry, a full game with your team over a couple of games. It's going to help him. I like what I've seen from Arch to this point.
Oh, I think so too. I think he's looked fantastic, but he might be a 2027 prospect.
That's true. And so could Nico, because Nico's got a lot to learn too.
Yeah,
that class went from being pretty exciting when we first saw them coming out to I don't know what I'm looking at right now.
So it's interesting. I mean, so these teams now, like you said, Carolina, Tennessee, New England, the Jets, Las Vegas, Cleveland,
Las Vegas,
Cleveland, they're in the market for a quarterback. I mean,
even Miami
Giants
might feel like they got to take one with everything that's going on with Tua.
So
the need is there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the demand is there and not much supply. So these guys are
Yeah,
automatically going to be just lifted up in
lifted right
the
up there.
draft. So good
Yep.
landing spot. So good conversation, guys, on the QB class. So, obviously this class is a step down from 2024 and
Mhm.
probably a step up from 2023, looking like Stroud is going to be the only one we're excited about in Dynasty. So
Yeah.
we're going to probably get two or three, hopefully, at least three starters for our dynasty rosters in 2025.